Welcome back. My name is still Patty Green, still an entrepreneurship professor at Babson College, and still the National Academic Director for Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. This toolkit is about resources. What are they? Where are they? What do I have? What do I need? Are they all good? Short answer, no. Is more always better? Again, short answer, no. Resources are the building block of your company, and they include many more things than money or even money and people. Part of advancing your opportunity for growth is to deeply think about and evaluate what things you already have in place to help you grow, and even what things might you have in place that could make growth more challenging. In this set of exercises, you'll do your resource inventory as it is right now. This is just your starting point and again becomes part of your growth plan. However, now that you have your growth opportunity in place, you'll also be able to map what resources you need, compare back to your starting resource map, and then begin to see where the fits and gaps really are in your resources. You might think of it in this way. Resources are one of the key components of our approach to entrepreneurship. The ability to identify opportunities, organize resources, and provide the leadership to create something of value. Ideally, that value is for you and your community. The fundamental aspect is that if you are going to build, you need building blocks, and your resources are your building blocks. You could think of resources as Lego. My husband and I have 3 grown sons. We still have mountains of Lego in our home. When the boys first got their Lego sets, it came with instructions to build a certain something, a droid, or maybe a starship, and yes, these were the Star Wars years. They usually used all the Legos the way they were supposed to be used the first time through. Then they added them to the inventory and created all kinds of things. Some of the Lego blocks were used constantly, others less so, and others just didn't fit. Sometimes they shared Legos across projects. Other times, they most definitely did not. Depends on what they wanted to build at that particular time and whether they were getting along at that particular moment. This toolkit follows the usual pattern. You'll next move to the overview of resources and the introduction to how you will do your resource mapping. You'll work through your discussion board to see what ideas you can spark from each other about resources. And you'll wrap it up with a webinar with your faculty member. As usual, the resource map becomes a part of your growth plan. Here's a hint, more like a reminder and a guiding premise for the program. We're going to give you lots of templates and tools. Almost every one of them, with just a few exceptions, was created especially for this program for you, the small business owner, in the specific categories of at least 2 years old, at least 4 employees, and at least $150,000 in annual revenues. You were the target for the curriculum. That you really need to think about what templates work for you, or what parts of templates work for you, and which don't, or at least could work better. Then you change the tool to suit you. For instance, in this resource exercise, we're going to provide a platform for discussion of 6 categories of resources. They've been heavily tested to be comprehensive, to provoke you to think about absolutely everything you can access to grow your business. Test the template, try it. Give it a fair shot to see if it works for you. If not, change it. That's a great kind of discussion to have with your growth group, your instructors, and your business advisors. We're going to ask you to push yourself in this exercises, and I warn you, once again, there may even be crayons involved. It's a joy. For others, not necessarily good news. However, remember that we did say we wanted to provide you with opportunities to wake up some creative muscles that you may not have used in a while. Remember Brewster's Millions? And I'm still standing on the idea that if we don't ask you to do something uncomfortable at least twice during the program, aka pushing you out of your comfort zone with a puzzle or a quilt, we haven't tried hard enough. Learning to grow is about thinking differently. So I'd suggest you try it both ways and pick your favorite color crayon. I'm going with green. Onward.
First, let's do the usual, but let's not let it be based only on habit, but instead on really thinking through the question. What do you want to get out of this session? You want to know or be able to do what? From our perspective, we want you to think about resources. What are they? And then be able to inventory and evaluate the full range of resources currently available to you. Later, you'll want to have a plan on how to map the resources you need to grow, and ultimately, and very specifically, use these maps to plan how to address any gaps. You'll be able to use your resource inventory in a number of our upcoming program activities. It can help you think about your growth opportunity. For instance, do I have a set of existing resources that lend itself better toward one opportunity direction than another? It can help you consider your financial resources. Do I have enough money? Do I have the right kind of money? Am I a positive or a negative resource? One way to think about that, do people like to work with or for me? Do I attract people or drive them away? Do my resources fit my marketing plan? For one example, if I'm using a lot of social media, do I have the right technology and people? Am I struggling with my sales team, salesperson, the way I sell? Do I have the right physical resources? Is my space right? Do I have the equipment I need? As you can see, as usual, it's all about fit. To start off, let's think about this. What is a resource? No, it's a key part of the definition of entrepreneurship that grounds this entire program. You are all working on identifying your opportunity or opportunities. Now we're talking about organizing resources. And to organize anything, you have to first understand what you have, do the inventory. We'll also be focusing on leadership in the program as well as value creation, with the usual emphasis on value for you, your family, your community, society, and so on. Play it forward. But first, back to resources. Welcome back, and let's talk resource type. When it comes down to it, there are 6 buckets of resources for you to use to grow your business. I actually like to play the game to see if there's something you name that doesn't fit into the buckets. But for now, let's look at the 6 categories and dig a bit deeper. There are 2 dimensions you can use to think about your resources. The first one is type. Before we go into these types, I'd like you to simply list your resources. Click play when you're ready to continue. Human capital. Gary Becker won a Nobel Prize in 1992 for the idea of human capital. This category is about the people resources, and we use the term human capital to think about acquired attributes, things that people have gathered up over the course of their and your lives. We usually consider human capital in terms of what people know, do, education, and experience. You may have people who are experienced welders, degrees in business, artists, chefs, you name it. Think about your education and experience. What can you do? Which, of course, will continue to balance with what you like to do. All in all, human capital is people. Again, let's also plant in your mind, they don't all have to work for you. You just need access. I've always thought that if Becker got a Nobel Prize for human capital, someone should get one for social capital. Social capital is about the who you know. It's your networks. Yet it's thinking about your networks in a very specific way, as a pathway, a two-way street through which resources flow both ways. Later in the program, you'll do a whole exercise on networking and really dive into an actual analysis of your network. For now, you already know, and even who they might know, and so forth. A researcher named Andy Granovetter did a study about these kinds of connections that really confirmed the idea of what he called the strength of weak ties. Sometimes it's going a bit out there in the degrees of separation that actually helps you connect to what you really need and what someone needs from you. To sum up the idea of social capital, it is about the networks with the underlying importance of productivity. Is there value in these relationships and reciprocity? The network flows both ways. The category of organizational resources is probably the category of resources that is the least understood and considered. The category includes such things as the reputation of the business, systems created to get things done, partnerships and other types of collaborations with other businesses or organizations, and the culture of your business. We'll be looking at all of these things throughout the program. Your business reputation as it relates to your brand, your systems when we explore operations and processes, relationships, even regarding working with your peers in this program, and we'll quite explicitly look at the culture of your company as another productivity tool, a resource. Physical resources are pretty straightforward to understand as to what they are. It's basically the stuff you can touch. It can be buildings, equipment, furniture, and so on. For some of your businesses, physical equipment is critical. Many of the businesses that have gone through our program are in construction, and equipment is a huge deal for them. Simone Bruni of Demo Diva New Orleans needs cranes. In waste management, Maria Rios with Nation Waste in Houston needs dump trucks. For other kinds of businesses, physical resources are less of an issue. Paul Norton of Ammo Books in Los Angeles does not need heavy equipment. It's about fit. The definition of technology is actually fairly generic. In a very basic sense, it's the application of science to solve problems. In a business sense, it usually crosses over between the physical, computers, human, knowledge, and organizational as to systems, focusing on the applied science tools used in most businesses. Usually the first things in this category are computers, smartphones, and so on. Depending on the kind of company, it can get into CAD systems and things like that. This is a good place to think about what types of categories actually do work for you. Financial resources, or the lack thereof, are generally blamed for the lack of business growth. We need more access to capital. In reality, it's usually the decisions made about money, how it's used, and especially how it's been used in the past, how the attempts are made to raise it, etc. This is the time to take stock of what financial resources you do have in hand to grow the business, including what's in the business and what personal funds you're willing and able to apply. You can think about your relationship with your bank. Seated you, approximately half said they had little or no actual relationship with their bank. How about you? This is also a very good time to think about credit ratings, which, if you do think about it, are actually a scorecard for the financial decisions you've made so far. If these categories capture the types of resources, how do you then evaluate them? Some are simple and tangible, you can touch them. Others are far more complex. Today, you might just evaluate them in terms of your current situation, but you can also evaluate them in terms of how they position you to pursue growth. After all, not all of your resources are positive. Some might be more expensive than they're worth. Others might actually detract from your business, such as the wrong people who just suck the life right out of you. And some resources, and please note now we are not talking about people, may be old and inefficient. Overall, the question is about what do you have, good or bad, and how do you get to having access to the resource set you really need to grow your business. Now that you have more information about resources and how they are organized, let's go over some examples to help you draw inspiration to build your own resource map. Your growth plan template provides a mapping space for you to begin to inventory your resources. For today, you are focused on the what I have column. When you have your opportunity statement completed, you'll come back and finish the what I need and action step columns to address your gaps. As I mentioned, warned you earlier, there are many ways to approach resource mapping. I'm going to show you 3 examples of completed resource maps. The first one is an in-depth use of the template we provide. This particular one is based on a scholar from our LaGuardia program. Take a few moments to review this grid and see what you can take away that might be helpful. Click play when you're ready to continue. I hope you saw this scholar made this template his own. For example, he broke out a special section on professional services. Why? Because that's a critical need for the growth of his business. In addition, he made special notes to himself inside the map. For example, he marked one resource need critical, and he added some descriptions of needs within the map. You can see his need a stronger following and brand recognition from artist community. You can also see that he addressed a negative resource. He has one too many buildings. Now, some of you might wish you were in that position, but it's still a resource that is draining other resources that could be put to better use for him. The point here is that this scholar adapted the template to best fit his own needs. He now knows what he has, he knows what he needs, and he's laying out the action step to fit those needs. This is a very analytical approach. Now take a few minutes to review example number 2 and see what you see that might be useful. Please note this is an advertising company. Click play when you're ready to continue. This map was actually done by a friend of 10KSB. The placement of the shapes was meaningful to her. The size of them, very much so. She was at an inflection point in her business growth, and things had to change. She realized that the organizational resources needed to serve more as a center of her company, building on a very strong company culture. She needed more people, and she definitely wanted more space. She took no more than 4 or 5 minutes to draw these, yet it helped her quite quickly get a sense and resolve what needed to happen next. The third and final example comes from one of our California scholars. Take a few moments to review this example. It's another take on making the tool your own. What do you see? Click play when you're ready to continue. It hopefully jumped out at you pretty quickly that this one is very heavy on people, the human and social resources. However, there's also an explicit recognition of systems. Like all the others, the map is static. It gives a picture at one point in time. The next step for this scholar was to develop the action steps to get the map to represent what he needed to grow. Now it's your turn. Go to your growth plan portfolio and, thinking about all the shared examples as an inspiration, create your own. Click play when you're ready to listen to the wrap-up for this section.
So, how did it go? Please tell me that you at least played with some different approaches to this. And don't be discouraged if it felt forced. It probably was a bit forced, just like that awkward first workout. Like any other muscle, your creative muscles need to be exercised. Over time, you'll build up strength and flexibility. And like any exercise, it's worth doing. The goal was to think about resources differently, what you have and what those things really contribute. Some of your resources probably jumped right out at you. Others may have emerged in a less obvious way. Often, other people are better at seeing some of our resources than we are. That's why working together is so valuable. Regardless of how you got there, you now have an inventory of your foundational resources for growth. You also now have 2 parts of your growth plan done. That's pretty great, right? You've completed the history part and the first part of the resource mapping. Earlier, I mentioned that these resource maps are static. They are a picture at a point in time. Unfortunately, that's often the downfall of business plans. Most company owners only write a business plan when they want external capital. As soon as they're done with financing, the business plan is history and it sits in a drawer. When you're done with it, the 10,000 Small Businesses Growth Plan is going to be a lot more tactical timely, and personal. As a result, it's going to be a lot more useful. But it's only going to be that way if you make it that way. Onward.